Hi, I'm also the guy who broke the water machine, so luckily this happened at the end of the day. Okay, so who of you knows who or what GoStudent is? May I have a quick show of hands? So about like 10, 15, 20% or so. So GoStudent is from Vienna. We're actually 4 blocks away on the other side of the Danube. And what we do is we are the largest provider in Europe for online tutoring. We also recently acquired Studienkreis and Lernquadrat, so we also offer tutoring for K-12 students in person as well at about 1,000 locations in the DACH region. And we're about live in 11 markets, and last year, it was our last investment round, our valuation was 3 billion euros. That's obviously quite exceptional for a company that is A, in education, and B, from Europe, because unfortunately, unlike in San Francisco, we don't get that many unicorns here in Europe. Okay, so about myself, I've got this title, which is Director Strategic Partnerships on Future Labs. And you probably know, or I have a feeling what strategic partnerships is, but what does a director of future labs actually do, right? And I'm glad that you asked, because the answer is actually relatively simple. So I've got one of the coolest jobs in the company, which is that I make learning better with the help of nascent technology. And so actually I come from a teacher family. My dad is a teacher, my stepmom is a teacher, my sister is a teacher, my uncle is a teacher, my mother-in-law is a teacher, no, sorry, not my mother-in-law, my stepmother is a teacher, and so on and so forth. And for those who speak German, I explain it to them like this, which is, ich mache Lernen geiler, which means something like I make learning just much more awesome. And so in 2022, about in summer, Meta approached GoStudent, and they were saying like, hey, we like what you're doing. You have tens of thousands of students, you have tens of thousands of tutors. Can you find out or explore what actually learning in the metaverse would look like? And I want to talk about the elephant in the room there, because I just was with Google prior, and I joined GoStudent. And when I joined the company, this was basically the notion that the metaverse had received in the market, right? It went from just a few months prior for being at the peak of inflated expectations, if you were to take the Gartner hype cycle, and it just went into this trough of disillusionment, right? Where prior VR or the metaverse was the answer to every solution, and then it kind of went into especially after Mark Zuckerberg posted that selfie, it kind of went into this laughingstock of the industry. And we asked ourselves, what are we doing with this? And as a matter of fact, we decided to still believe in this. And the reason why is because actually, the European students told us so. So every year, we asked thousands of students in Europe, and we asked them about the future of education. And we also very recently actually asked them about hey, what do you think, what would you like to do in the metaverse? And the number one is, no surprises, it's gaming, right? Obviously that makes sense, and this is actually an area where the VR industry actually makes money, right? But the second use case is education, right? Students in Europe are telling us that they would like to learn in VR. And frankly, this is where you go from this amount of content and experiences into this world. And so we thought, let's have a look at this. Let's figure out what we actually can do and what makes sense here. And my presentation is basically about what is realistic, right? Where should you believe, and the questions you should ask yourselves. Actually, if I fast forward today, right, I do think that somehow it's more looking like this, that we're somehow on that slope to enlightenment. For those who are familiar, you may have seen Lex Friedman's interview with Mark Zuckerberg, where you could just see, I think, in Lex's face that he could see that the metaverse and VR can actually really help for people to bridge, and build a connection with people, regardless of where they are in the world. So I think we see, indicators that we're somewhere going into a land which is actually very promising. Now, some background of myself. I already had mentioned that before joining GoStudent, I was with Google. I joined the company in Dublin, got sick and tired of the weather, lived in Australia for 5 years, and then eventually I got the call to go to headquarters. And in Mountain View, I had one of the most amazing jobs that there is actually at Google, which is that I was embedded into an organization which was first called Daydream. So for those who are familiar, we were building, we were actually Google's VR business. And then eventually, we changed our focus to AR, Google Glass, Project Iris that you may have heard about, and other future form factors come of this unit, but also things such as, visual search and real-time 3D streaming and digital twins. And basically, my job and the job of my team was to figure out like what is a product market fit for these technologies, and what is monetizable, what can actually bring sustainable value to our partners and to our users, and which was actually like just an incredible job to do. And based on that experience at Google, I basically, when I was talking to the founders of GoStudent, the reason why I told them that they should hire me is because, yes, I love technology and I get excited by it, but I've also seen a lot of technology not work out. Right? And it's not the fault of technology, but maybe of the ecosystem where the market is. So I also have this healthy skepticism that you have to take with you when you, think about what metaverse or generative AI or whatever the next buzzword might be, 6G might do. Right? And one of the things that we always asked ourselves was when we were looking to actually launch something with a partner, and very often for the very first time, was whether this company is doing this project with us because they believe in the value, or are they doing VR for PR, or later on AR for PR, right? Because a lot of companies often, they want to have that illumination of, the stamp of we are innovators, but they don't really care if users are using this once or 10 times or 1,000 times, or if it's just 10 people using it, journalists, or actually thousands of users. And when Meta approached us at GoStudent, I didn't want it to become a PR thing. I wanted to become something that is sustainable. And so we basically went onto a journey of conducting a series of pilots and finding customer insights to really figure out where it is where we can use VR, for students to learn better. And initially we did so I'm going to put this onto the floor because I don't want to break something again, yeah? Just that you know. So the first thing that we did was that we actually took students and our tutors and we threw them into Rising Workrooms, which is basically the meeting software from Meta, and we conducted tutoring sessions, right? Math, biology, foreign languages, and so on and so forth. And the feedback was this. The students loved it, right? But the tutors, not so much. In fact, they were quite skeptical. So for example, one of the students told me, or actually my colleague to be exact, hey, I usually struggle with concentration. And when I'm wearing this VR headset, I can't be distracted by my real life, right? It's basically like I'm wearing horse blinders or something like this, and they're really in the moment. But then on the tutor side, right, what we heard was that there's a lot of effort and friction that comes with conducting tutoring in VR. Right? So imagine you're learning math. And yes, with this controller, you can write on a virtual whiteboard, but actually it is a bit clunky if you compare this to maybe a keyboard or a mouse or maybe like a tablet or something like this. It's possible, but it's really like a lot of work. Or in tutoring, it's often about homework. So to get a screenshot, like a homework problem that the student may have, into Horizon Workrooms is possible, but takes a lot of preparation time, right? So there was a lot of friction. And so when we think about, any new technology that we want to use, there's always like this value, right? Like of being more immersed, of being more present in this case, but it comes with a lot of friction, right? These headsets, they need to be charged. You have to spend money on them, right? Maybe you don't want to travel with them, and so on and so forth. And you really have to ask yourself, or we ask ourselves that question, is like, is the value that you're getting here, is it worth the friction? And what we did then was that we further had a look into what our customers were saying. And this was one of these, most important moments in our journey of trying to uncover value when it comes to education, using VR for education, which was that basically we heard from parents, right? We basically are the buyers of tutoring, and the children are the consumers, the users. And the parents have told us, hey, my son or daughter, they really learning, grammar really well in school and vocabulary. But what they're really missing out on is speaking abilities, right? And not only that, but also self-confidence. So to imagine that they send their son or daughter abroad and then they talk to a native speaker in a foreign country, or they work in a foreign language after school, or maybe they just have mündliches Abitur, which is a verbal exam, right? And they have to talk straight for 7 minutes in a foreign language. Like, this is something a lot of kids didn't feel prepared for. They weren't taught that in school. And when you think about this, that really makes sense, right? Like, a typical lesson is 45 minutes. It's about 30 kids. In those 45 minutes, how much active talking time do you really get, right? How much do you converse? And then, when I was a teenager and was like 13 or 14, my voice was changing, I had pimples in my face. Like, I was afraid to talk in front of 30 other people, right? And let alone in another language. And let alone, like, practice new words and grammar concepts that I've never used before, right? Like, this is a real issue. And then we took a look at VR and we thought, maybe there's something here. Maybe VR and the metaverse can actually be a solution for this problem that parents are seeing and that kids and the kids are actually really having. And so this vision was born, where we thought, what if we were to teleport students to France, right? And we teleport them, let's say, to a market. And then they have to role play, in virtual reality on this market. They have to buy something. And for example, they have to buy 2 apples. And they say something like this, Je voudrais 2 pommes de terre. No, that's potatoes. 2 pommes, yeah? And then they actually handed 2 bananas. And then they have to role play the scenario, right, in VR. So we thought, what if we can actually create like a little student exchange from the comfort at home to help them practice those language speaking skills. By the way, my sister is a Spanish and French teacher, and she would be embarrassed by my French performance just now, but please don't tell her. This is recorded, right? We have to delete this. Okay, now going back to friction and value. So we had this idea, and then we thought, okay, let's make really sure that the value that we're getting here is up to par. So we asked us a bunch of questions. Do we have a strong customer insight? What is our competition here, right? What are we competing with? Are there actually similar tools being used traditionally in school and in pedagogy that kind of show us that this indication would make sense? We asked ourselves, is there unique value? Is there scientific proof? Can we scale somehow? And these friction points that we saw in the pilots, can we realistically approach them? And as it turns out, we actually thought, yes, we do see positive signs in all of these areas. Let me highlight a few. So the first one was when we're talking to teachers, they told us, for example, that it's a common tool in foreign language learning and teaching that if you give masked students, they actually dare to, their self-confidence and their willingness to try new words is improved, right? And then we thought, actually, avatars are like masks on steroids, right? You can be a man, a woman, you can wear a dress. In the solution that we have, you can even wear a hot dog costume, if you wish, right? So you can be anybody, and therefore, because you can be anybody, right, you're more likely to be distanced from yourself and actually take that risk of practicing this foreign language. Furthermore, so actually I kind of spoke about this. The other thing that was important to us, if we do something, it needs to be available cross-device, right? Because I think it only makes sense to build an experience in VR if it's already good on a laptop or on a mobile device, on a tablet, and then even greater in VR. I think if I see one mistake in the industry, it's that, I love Meta and they've really enabled us, but if you build VR-only experiences, you're really missing out and building experiences that provide value to anybody. And I think the pitch of VR should be that it needs to be even greater if you put on a headset, and good or, great even on a laptop. So we wanted to make sure that we have a cross-device solution. And in terms of the friction points, this is also where the laptop was really important. So when we went into an in-depth review on which software we should be using to provide these foreign language exchanges to our students, we actually found a supplier, they're called Immerse, drumroll, that actually their tutors, their teachers are not teaching in a VR headset, but they do so on a laptop. And the cool thing even is in Immerse is that the students don't notice, right? Because so in Immerse, what happens is that there's an avatar that actually represents the teacher. And if the teacher is talking, the avatar will actually look at the different students automatically. And if the student is talking to the avatar will look at the student, right? And by running these sessions on a laptop, the teacher can actually, or the tutor can quickly, create breakout rooms or type vocabulary, mute and unmute student, and really do class management much more effectively than you would be able to do on a controller. Now, so what does language learning in VR look like with GoStudent? So first of all, we have about 43 different environments. And they range from, an airport, there's a deserted island, there's a cafe, we've got, a stand-up comedy club for advanced language learners where they can actually really practice humor in a foreign language and stand in front of other students. And what we do is we have, in these 40 environments, we run classes with them. And, they're with 2 to 7 students, and they're being guided by a real tutor, right? Somebody who actually is leading this class. And the whole idea is that we're creating basically fear-free spaces where students can dare to take risks. And what I mean with this is that they can dare to make a mistake, right? Because language learning is all about trying new things. And I think the problem of the school system is that we penalize students when they do something wrong, rather than actually encouraging them to try, right? And so we have these environments in this curriculum where we're really helping students to dare saying something for the very first time. And if they make a mistake, they're not just corrected, but they're also praised for doing so. And a typical lesson looks like this, that it's about 5 or 10 minutes where we explain like whatever we're learning this lesson. It might be grammar, or it might be vocabulary. And then the remaining 35 to 40 students, 35 to 40 minutes, the students are doing exercises with each other. They have teamwork. And it happens to be that like through this immersion, they're learning faster, but they're having a lot of fun. And, well, this was actually the idea. So then we conducted a pilot where we basically took 30 students, and they took about 10 classes each, because it was very important that this doesn't just make once, but it actually even makes sense for the 10th time. And, I joined a few of these sessions. And so you have to imagine a class like this. In this case, the students had a timer where they had to find ingredients for in a virtual kitchen for a recipe, right? And the cool thing was that if you take a look closely, Anna had, for example, had placed the tomato with the fruit, because for all the pros out there, tomatoes are fruits and not vegetables, and avocados are fruits and not vegetables as well, right? And so you saw how the students went out there. They had like these little scanners if they didn't know a word, and then they found something, and they were debating whether it's a vegetable or fruit, and then placed it. And the next step was that they had to create recipes with, they had to create a dish based on a recipe with these ingredients. And what I noticed was that, it was about 45 minutes into the class, and there was just so much laughter going on, right? And the students were engaged. When I was 13, after 45 minutes, I was spent. Actually, I was already spent in the first 3 minutes, if I'm entirely honest, right? Because I stayed up too long and watched TV secretly without my mom noticing. And I could see that they were engaged. And one of my highlights was then when actually Antonia, she dropped a plate. And she was like, and the plate, it exploded into virtual pixels, but it wasn't a real plate that was hurt. And I could just tell that the students really felt like they were in this kitchen and they forgot where they actually were at home. And when we got the results in the end, like this feeling that I had, that this is something that is actually good, turned into numbers, right? So on a scale from 1 to 10, when we were asking both parents and students if they learn faster, the answer was yes. If we asked them, do you feel like you have more self-confidence, or do you feel like your son or daughter is developing more self-confidence? The answer was yes. And then finally, learning was also faster. And one of the mistakes that we actually made was, so if you take a look at the lowest score, which was 6.9 for the statement, I believe that I can learn a language faster and more effectively by taking a VR language course compared to traditional language classes. That was because we slotted students initially a little bit too low, and we had to actually amp up a little bit of the challenge that they had. Right? But overall, like, the results were really astonishing. We thought, we don't think we have something in math right now for VR, but we strongly believe that we have something in foreign language learning. And based on these results, you can actually learn foreign languages in English right now at GoStudent, and also in Germany via our Studienkreis centers. And there was this one stat from the results that I initially thought was amazing, which was that 90% of the students said in this pilot that the experience was even better or much better than anticipated. And I thought, like, hey, this is great, like it's better than anticipated. But then the stat really made me think, because I thought about myself when I was a teenager, and somebody would have given me a free VR headset and would have said, Alex, you're going to be learning a language on a deserted island, right? And you can be standing on a stand-up comedy stage and pretend that you're funny. Spoiler, Germans are not funny, right? So I would have failed. But I would have thought it was a great idea, and I would have had really high expectations. And the students also had really high expectations, and yet it was better than they had expected. And I think this is where this challenge lies from us, because I think the challenge is that most people in Europe, or in most countries, have not tried VR. Right? So how do you convince them that whatever they are doing on a phone, on a laptop, they should be doing in VR? And then the second step is now convince a mom or dad that their son or daughter should be learning a language in VR. Right? Like, this is really, really complicated. And I think this is really where our challenge is in the industry, right, in politics or whatsoever. How can we make sure that people understand what this power is, right, and why they should be using it to learn a sport or a language or just have fun or meet with others? And I'm going to show you a quick video. Sorry, it's in German, just to show you how we market it.
I'm not really sure, unfortunately, we will have time.
Oh, okay. There's still 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
For the audience.
Ah, okay.
We're actually opening the floor for the audience, but a round of applause, please. First for Alexander.
Thank you. Hey, can I make a suggestion? The video is 30 seconds. Should we watch it? Yes, okay, sorry.
All right, it's fair enough.
Deswegen nehmen wir dich mit.
In eine abgefahren andere Welt. In unserem VR-Sprachkurs rettest du anderen das Leben, planst ein Barbecue oder rockst eine Poolparty. Alles von zu Hause, virtuell mit anderen und einer ziemlich guten Lehrkraft. Und der Trouble mit der Note?
Welcher Trouble?
Sichere dir deinen Platz in unseren VR-Sprachkursen
auf studienkreis.de.
Oh mein Gott, ich wünschte, ihr könntet das sehen.
Okay, and now whoever takes the first question has to talk really fast to make up for the video.
All right, and we have 2 minutes, but first of all, a round of applause again for Alexander. And I will give the mic to... Who's the first? Or maybe, let's imagine we're in a VR environment and we're about to talk French. Comme ça, je poserai la question en français. I'm sorry, I don't speak German, but... okay, absolutely.
Thank you, it's very interesting. What's next, basically, and how is your program doing in terms of the collaboration? Maybe
Yeah.
to expand a bit more.
Yeah, so what's next for us that we are live right now in DACH, which is Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, in German, and very soon we're going to be expanding the offering to 4 more countries, which is the UK, Spain, Italy, and France. And we're also going to be launching Spanish. And then, because I spoke about this, what we're thinking about is like, how do we increase this barrier to entry, right? And so we're basically finding ways for students to try this, for example, on a laptop, right, rather than actually doing on a VR headset. We're also going to have like a special offer where you can buy 5 classes and get a free headset on top of that. It's just to really lower the barrier for entry, because what we want to see is more volumes, more students in there, and I think the easier we make it, the less risk it is for the parents, the cheaper it is, the better.
All right.
Thank you.
Who's next? Okay, I see that person over there, and hopefully we'll have time for last one, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious to know, how do you test your applications in terms of being sure that the learning outcome is as high as possible?
Yeah, so on the learning outcome, so basically there's like 2 things that we've done. So our partner Immerse has tested, with scientific proof from universities and so on and so forth, that this indeed actually works for language learning. So that's one. The other one was actually that we're asking our customers, right, if they believe to do so. And actually, there's a bit of a Central European challenge, which is that especially Germans, I'm not sure how it is for Austrians, actually somewhat similar, is if we have fun doing something, we don't believe we're learning something, right? So this is something we've uncovered, and actually our, colleagues at Studienkreis know very well, is that sometimes we have to remind people like, hey, this is what you learned today. So following up with, a PDF and things like that, it's like, as a reminder, this is what happened, is actually really valuable.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions and for the answer. I will invite you again to upload him because I think that it was pretty impressive what he presented in such a short time and with some pressure on top of that. Alexander, thank you. They can find you here, right?
Yes, they can find me, and don't let me go to the water machine. Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers.